Greetings, viewers of The Pioneer. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring developments regarding the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. In a moment, we will try to convey to you the developments on the last day of the war with a map. According to the latest reports, the fighting between two armies continued today in 5 sectors of the front line. Clashes in the Wuhledar region also seem to have resumed after a long time. As we mentioned, the 5 sectors of the front line are very active. We believe that the Russian armed forces have increased pressure on the Donetsk front line compared to the past days. They have to, because they still have not achieved the desired success in the Donetsk attacks they have been carrying out for about 3 months. Throughout the offensives in the region, Russian troops have maintained a rather complex profile. Many Russian sources criticize the Russian war leadership for this. So what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the video. Thank you for your all supports. Let's start if you are ready, the Pioneer reports. Let's start with the developments on the Kherson front line. Let me start by saying the Kherson front line was calmer today compared to the past days. Therefore, we can see that only routine clashes continued. Russian artillery units continued their attacks on the Ukrainian bridgeheads on the Kherson front line today. However, these attacks did not yield results. The Marines of the Ukrainian armed forces stationed in the direction of Krinky managed to protect their positions. In addition, Ukrainian positions in the vicinity of the Delta islets continued to exist. Let us continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in the directions of Dniprovsky, Permovsky, Veletensky, Kilmzmy, and Antoniivka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces in Olapristan, Starozhubivka, Novozhubivka, Kardashinka, Kakhovka, Pachanivka, Poima, and Alishki. Now let's look at the reports on the latest situation in the Robotny sector of the Zaporizhia front line. First, let's see the area on the map. As you know, there is a routine of Robotny attacks on the front line. Today, units of the Russian armed forces carried out attacks on the western part of the village of Robotny. During these attacks, Russian artillery units were very active. However, there are no gains of the Russian armed forces around Robotny. At the same time, units of the Russian armed forces launched an offensive east of Novoprokopivka. Here, Russian sources claim that Russian troops have made progress about 2 kilometers deep. However, as we have noted, these are allegations. In general, we need visual confirmation to prove the developments on the front line. However, so far, Russian sources have not shared such a visual confirmation. Therefore, we can say that the Russian advance in Novoprokopivka is uncertain. Let us continue by mentioning the artillery activity in the area. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted units of the Ukrainian armed forces deployed in the direction of Kermenskoye, Shorbianki, Orikhiv, Malachak-Makcha, and Zhelenodzherovkovki. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted units of the Russian armed forces stations in Kopany, Ichenkov, Novoprokopivka, Verbov, and Novopokrovka. Now let's continue by analyzing the latest developments in the Wuhledar sector of the Zaporizhia front line. According to the latest reports, the Wuhledar sector of the Zaporizhia front line has become quite active after a long time. Troops of the Russian armed forces attempt a broad offensive from Pryotny to Novovodarivka. The Ukrainian armed forces have very strong defense lines in this area, and therefore, Russian troops in the region failed to make any gains during their offensives there. In addition, the Russian armed forces launched another serious attack on Stromayorsk, which have been trying to capture for a long time. Although first Russian artillery units and then Russian infantry units attacked, the Russian armed forces could not make any gains here either. The border line remains largely stable. Let us continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in Poltavka, Ladorovny, Rivnopol, Makarivka, Vladoneivka, Yorkhain, Pachanotkov, and Wuhledar. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces south of Priyotny, Zavidny Bazhania, Novomyrsk, and Pavlovka. Let's continue our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, the Russian armed forces supported by artillery on the Donetsk front line continued offensive operations on the southern and southeastern outskirts of Novomykhailovka and in Georgivka area. However, they failed to make any gains during these offensive operations. We also observed an attempt by units of the Russian armed forces to advance in Nevolsky. Similarly, we observed an attack on Permovsky after the bombardment of the Russian Air Force. However, the Russian army failed to make any gains in these attacks. Supported by long-range weapons, the Russian armed forces continued to attack Avdiivka from the industrial zone on the southeastern outskirts and from the northeast near the coke factory. During the offensives from the northeast of Avdiivka, Russian troops made limited progress. Attacks on Novobakhotovka, controlled by the Ukrainian armed forces, were not successful. The attacks here were repelled by the Ukrainian armed forces. Let us continue by mentioning the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in Konstantinivka, Pobeda, Strom, Severnoye, Stepnoye, Berdychach, Orechetin, and New York. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted elements of the Russian armed forces stations in Marinka, Donetsk, Wuhledar, and the village of Krasnogorovka. While the activity started in calm areas on the front line, we see that the calmness have begun on the Bakhmut front line, which is one of the areas that have been active for a long time. As you know, the Russian army has been making attempts to advance here for some time, just like on the Donetsk front line. However, according to the latest reports, this region was quite calm today. Now tell me, what do you think? Do you think the Donetsk defense will be successful? Do you think Ukrainian troops will regain lost positions? In whose favor do you think the situation on the Kherson front line be shaped? What do you think about the problems of the Russian army on the Donetsk front line? Will the Ukrainian army be able to assess the failure of the Russian army? What do you think the Ukrainian army should do? Let me know in the comments. You know that I read and care about all your comments.